All right, it's been about 3 years since I made a video on not drinking coffee, my whole journey with that, and it's been now more than 3 years since I haven't had any coffee, I haven't had any alcohol, I haven't partaken in any recreational type of drugs or just anything altering like cannabis, like psychedelics, and I've had such a journey with each of these different types of substances, but really it's been a long time since I've really consumed anything that has deeply like altered, especially my nervous system, but also my mind. And I want to dive into all of that. My whole journey with this, and I'm calling this a sobriety check-in because really what I think about when I think about sobriety is not just like, oh my gosh, someone was addicted to this thing and now you're not having it anymore, but really just being a sober Sally. Like I'm in my sober lifestyle and I was never really addicted or had an issue or was deeply consuming any of these substances, but I was pretty reliant on them in different seasons of my life. So I'm gonna hop around a little. I'll go back to my past on what each of these things were like for me growing up, but then also I'm gonna start with what this unlayering journey has been like for me. So it's 2026, the beginning of 2026, and at the end of 2022, I was really at this culmination of my life where I had just gone through a whole year of so many cords being cut, of so many cords being severed. And what I mean by that is I was going through a series of lessons and challenges in my life, just a really heavy year for me, where so many things were really being stripped out of my life, and for the better, but it was very hard. I had to give up my dog at the time. I was letting go of people that weren't serving me. I was almost starting from like zero or negative in my bank account and then replenishing from there. I had some family things that I was letting go of. I had a car that I was letting go of, like so many different things that I was working through at the time. And I was very much drinking coffee every single day. And I had been before that, but I was definitely in this like time period where I was romanticizing my morning coffee and just really having fun with it and getting some raw cream, and my coffee was organic, and I was definitely like, it wasn't low quality, it was some highest quality stuff, but I was still reliant on it. Like I wanted every morning to have coffee or cold brew at the time. I also was feeling this like weird shift with alcohol because growing up, I always wanted to fit in. Like being someone who is brown, having immigrant parents, I was always just like, oh my gosh, like I just want to be cool, right? It was all about being cool, and part of being cool was actually like partaking in substance use to fit in. And I had to really do a lot of work on myself, being truthful for myself and getting into my honest energy, which taking out substances has allowed me to be like unapologetically myself and stand true in my conviction, because I've basically been stripping myself away from anything that I'm doing, again, just to be cool or just to fit in. And so drinking was always in a setting of like social drinking. I was always like having a drink because that felt comfortable. I even did, at that time I was running an events company, and we did event collaborations with like hard kombucha, which is really big here in San Diego, and wine, and just like so many things that was like fun for the social aspect. And basically in that year of 2022, basically for the second half of the year, anytime I would have alcohol or coffee, I felt really weird. So with coffee, I, for the first time, was feeling so like anxious and like noticed my heart beating faster and felt like my like mind was skipping before my heart. And with alcohol, I would just get really, for lack of a better word, like bitchy. Like I didn't like who I was, and I wouldn't even drink as much, but if I was just there with my partner and we were kind of flourishing and had just met that year and really like blooming with our relationship, I was like, why do we feel off? Like we just really didn't like how we were when we were drinking and just kind of felt agitated. I had to kind of go through that a few times to feel uncomfortable, to feel like, I feel like I'm going through the motions. I'm getting a drink on our birthday because that's the thing to do, or I'm having coffee because that's what I do every morning. That's my comfort zone. I think agitation's the right word. It was agitating my nervous system. And that is essentially what catalyzed this whole journey for me. And so I share that because it wasn't like an overnight, I need to cut out alcohol, I need to cut out coffee, and so I'm doing it. It was a very it was a process where my body and my mind were just really speaking to me, and I was receptive to that, and I was responding. And so that's something that is absolutely essential in this journey, if you are even curious about it or if you're going through it yourself, is like, you have to almost take your ego, yourself, out of the decision making, and now you're in this surrender. And if it is God, if it's the universe, if it's divine spirit, this spiritual connection that you have, you're receptive and you're having this dialogue, and you're like, wait, like, who do I need to be to fulfill my purpose? Who do I need to be to love better? Who do I need to be a better partner, be a better friend? Who do I need to be to increase my capacity for feeling pleasure, for feeling life, for feeling excitement? And what is no longer serving me? And that dialogue, it like comes through even through your substances. So like the way you have something, you're more attuned to like, how is this making me feel? Around the same time, I actually had gotten gifted a really cool mushroom alternative coffee cacao mix. So it had chicory root, it had functional mushrooms, and it had cacao. And I was like, let me just give this a go and try it out, because coffee is kind of feeling weird, but I absolutely still want this like morning drink. And that had come at the perfect time. I'll link it below if I can find it. Amazing woman, small business who makes these mixes. And I had started creating a new ritual, and it allowed me to still have this morning drink that felt earthy. And I love these earthy like profiles, like cacao, chocolatey, coffee, like the chicory root really helps with that type of taste. And you're getting the functional mushrooms, which they do like open up pathways in your brain. I don't know if that's actually what they do, but they're really like stimulating in that way without this nervous, like jittery sensation. So I was experimenting with that, and that had helped me. With the alcohol, it was just these steps of like really just continuously feeling comfortable with saying no, and it just led me to feel way more peace. And I also felt like I was saving so much. Oh my gosh, like if you go out to a restaurant and just add alcohol to the mix, you're easily spending anywhere from $20 to $30 to $50 more depending on your group of people and how many drinks you're having. And even just the bottles of wine you're bringing home and buying, like it's this whole other expense. And so that felt like a huge relief. That actually for me personally was pretty easy to let go. Again, it felt like this relief, but the coffee drinking and that ritual, I needed some alternatives. That alternative drink later brought me to cacao, and I discovered a brand called Maya Moon Cacao that's in San Diego. They actually have a cacao cafe, which was really cool and a huge lifesaver for me too. I'm so blessed that we have that here, and I'm sure in big cities they have more alternative drinks at cafes now. And so leaning into cacao, which can still have a slight amount of caffeine and slight like sensational feeling, but rather than having it be so intense for your mind, it's more of this heart opening, like cardiovascular, invigorating drink. And so that was definitely my transition, and coming back to like my taste profile, liking the earthiness and that warmth and that almost like chocolatey notes. Like the cacao was perfect, and it was earthy and it wasn't so sweet. I could control it, and I have fun making these drinks. Now I'm gonna kind of jump back into different substances. So psychedelics and also cannabis. And now I'm rewinding back. So I'm 29 now, but I would say in my later teenage years and early 20s, I definitely got into a habit of smoking weed. And you know, in some states and places, this could be so extra taboo, but in Southern California, the weed lifestyle is life. That is very common for people, especially in affluent neighborhoods where I was going to school. You know, there's not much to do. High school kids are entertaining themselves, and so you could do anything, but smoking weed would enhance what you're doing. So a restaurant food would be better if you're high. Going to a view and looking at it, it would be better if it's high. Listening to music in the car with your friends, it would be better if you're high. Like all these things, and it was just this enhancing thing. At the same time, I was just going through kind of a peak of a lot of family issues and just, nothing crazy out of the ordinary. I mean, my parents were split up, and there was just, all the struggles with seeing my single mom and everything she was going through, but then my brother and I going through puberty and going through our high school years at the same time and butting heads. All of that together was just like, felt so much for me. And I almost was using it as this little escape for me, and this comfort and like, okay, let me just shut the world out and listen to music and be high. Luckily that was short-lived, and at times I felt like I was revisiting it throughout my mid-20s, but really as I look back, it was never my true desire of like, I want to be high. It was more so people around me were in that lifestyle still and in that habit. And so again, my part of me that wanted to fit in and that wanted to be cool. And it wasn't always just me. Sometimes I would say I didn't want to, but people, even past previous relationship partners, would be a little bit frustrated if I didn't want to, because, now I don't want to, but that's reflecting or mirroring something in them. Perhaps they weren't fully at peace with like, okay, I could be high because this is what I want to, but my person doesn't need to be. And so definitely, I'm not gonna lie to you and say that everyone's gonna be on board with your sobriety journey, but I do know that for a fact, the people who are meant to be in your life, even if they still drink or get high or whatever it is, or take psychedelics, which so many of my friends still do in their own ways that have been healing and that are true for them in this season of life, like they will still stick into your life and stay with you. It's just you being so honest and convicted. And I feel like when we're integrated in that, then we're no longer letting other people feel uncomfortable by it. And also the types of friendships you have. And so I think that would probably have been the most difficult part for me throughout my processes, is actually getting comfortable around people and standing true to like, yes, I don't do this right now. This is not serving me right now. Even psychedelics, like it's interesting because now it's so common that every other person's going through an ayahuasca journey, doing mushrooms and all the things. And I actually had a time period also in my early 20s where I just had these experiences come to me, and they ended up being so healing and wonderful. And so by no means in this video am I bashing any of these things, but this is absolutely for the person who feels the call that they want to be in their sober Sally season and are feeling constraints around it. You might just be needing to give up caffeine, and that's fine. But if you have any of these other layers of substances, then this is for you. But it used to be so taboo, but now, especially in places like Southern California, or the more and more retreats that are out there with plant medicine as a healing modality, it is so normalized. The problem is when the phenomenon or the concept or the idea that you need psychedelics, plant medicine to go through your healing journey. And that was the big thing that I had to kind of break the grips or the belief system around. I was listening to so many podcasts, kind of like the Aubrey Marcus podcast, and just a lot of people who were in the world of psychedelics. And this is when it was really taboo. So listening to people really was beneficial at the time. It opened my mind. It just allowed me to feel more comfortable in my process and journey of using these psychedelics as kind of like teachers. But the problem came when it was portrayed that you can only get the teaching experience through these psychedelics and plant medicines. And that's not the case. The actual belief that I have now is that the lesson is always there and available for you with literally nothing. Like me filming this video right now, you watching it, there's a lesson in here. And if we allow ourselves to be so present and receive that lesson, that can be just as powerful as going on a whole different experience. All that to say, whether people have their own traumas, addictions, everything, sometimes we need a stronger thing to shake up our world or to really like disarmor us, because we have so many armors that we've put up through the traumas and through the pains and everything in our childhood and growing up. I think these psychedelic experiences came to me at a beautiful time, but I did have this tug of war with needing to let go. And the reason is because, coming back to this idea of wanting to fit in and be cool, but I started to identify with being a person that wasn't afraid of psychedelics, that had amazing learning journeys from psychedelics. I wanted to share them with people. I even at a time wanted to host retreats with them. I was just so wanting to get immersed in this world. That kind of is just my personality. When I'm passionate or excited about something, I just get kind of so intertwined into it. Because I had this identity, just like diets that we try out, we get so excited and then we get intertwined and it feels like it's our diet now. We kind of let it go. Kind of like if you're a coffee person, if you love coffee shops, that is going to be so hard to give up coffee. It for sure was for me because I loved coffee shops. Now I go into a coffee shop and I'm like, what do I order? Like, thank goodness for the cacao cafe, but that's just a real thing. And so with that, it's really just allowing ourselves to be okay and being open and receptive to like, who am I? What is my identity without these substances? And trusting that the lesson, the teachings are always there for you. If you are going into doing certain substances with a teaching or like a healing purpose, it really is important to know that yes, they can be really helpful, but no, you do not need them to be the thing. For me, I realized, and it was that same, like, I would try something, I would try a substance, and I would be like, yeah, I'm getting some healing, but like, it was fine, but I don't feel, it just didn't resonate with me. And I think like plant medicines do have that stronger dialogue with you. You can do a little bit more tug of war and whining with coffee or even alcohol, but these deeper psychedelics, you can't really bullshit. They will be very clear. You won't have a good experience if it's not meant for you, and you'll feel resistance in your body even days or weeks before if something's not meant for you. And so I was feeling that, but in the same year, 2022, of the cord cutting and the severing, I was entering in this new relationship, which to me, I think in the back of my mind, I knew this was like a deep sacred union, a deep commitment. And with that, this relationship is now my biggest mirror. It is this thing that is teaching me so much. And the more I surrendered to that, everything around me became this distraction or something that was actually pulling me in a different way. I realized that my relationship, my union, was becoming my biggest teacher, that all of my lessons that I needed was in the relationship I was in. Last thing to really touch on here is nervous system regulation. And also this theme, we can call it just becoming more feminine or leaning into our femininity. And I was very much calling this shift for me, coming from the fitness industry, just being kind of like hard and disciplined and rigid. And I was starting to consume the resources and really just allowing myself to soften. The relationship I was in was allowing me to soften, but that actually made me so much more sensitive. I was literally resensitizing my system, and at that, now looking back, I'm like, I think that's why the coffee started creating all this anxiety for me. It wasn't there, months before when my life felt so chaotic, but all of a sudden when I got to fully slow down with my life and have slow mornings and read my book, and I'd have my coffee and I'm like, why do I feel like so not in my body and not connected? And lately, especially recently, I've really started to notice, like, how is my nervous system feeling? And so while I have not had any coffee, I have had seasons where I've tried matcha. Matcha definitely has caffeine. It sometimes can have more caffeine than what a coffee serving could be. I feel that it definitely hits different. It's not like a jitteriness, but if I do not have it where I'm feeling fully peaceful, maybe even meditate in the morning, maybe having food in the morning, definitely having it with milk and not just water. The milk has like proteins and fats and carbs that can help. So many different layers to that. I still have to be very careful, but the matcha can feel a little bit different. I've also been experimenting with hojicha, which is kind of like a roasted matcha, different type of tea drink that we can have. And that is supposed to be almost like the decaf version of matcha. So I've noticed that definitely helps a lot as well. For me personally, I just love a good morning drink. And while I was having cacao a lot, too much of anything is not good for you. And because cacao is so earthy and it's like the straight bean that's almost grinded up, it's not even brewed like coffee, but it's literally like you're consuming the actual bean. It can be intense on the adrenals, it can be dehydrating sometimes. So it's this whole process, just like leaning more into my femininity, tuning into my menstrual cycles and what's really serving me, and am I gonna work today? Am I gonna be doing this today? If I am having matcha, am I having it in the morning? And caffeine has this whole effect of how it can stay in your system for so long. So that I'm not gonna fully get into. There's so much science and information out there. What I will say is that we as humans really want to justify our comfort zone. So we want to justify and make it okay to have whatever caffeine or substance we're having, or make it okay to have the drink of alcohol. And it's coming back to almost this prayer of like, can I be in my honest energy? Can I be truthful? Can I do the things that are truly going to let my nervous system be at peace? And with that prayer, with that intention, then the things fall into place in the right way. I also want to give a disclaimer that everything that I said and shared, it's not really for people who have a deep addiction. I think there's definitely elements that can help, but addiction is going to be a little bit of a different game that I have not had too much experience when it comes to substance use. I have had food addictions, I haven't had intense substance addictions, but this is definitely for people who feel like, okay, I'm fine, I'm not like crazy addicted, but I have these comforts, I have these things holding me back. I feel like parts of me are not fully there in my true convicted self, and I want to start letting go of the things that are not absolutely necessary for me. All right, I hope this was helpful on your journey of maybe stepping into your sober Sally season and maybe letting go of the things that are not serving you. I hope this process of what I've shared, the prayer, the kind of feelings of focusing on your nervous system and the peace and letting go of what's no longer serving you, really understanding and remembering that the lessons are right there for you and they don't come from just consuming things all the time. It's really all just there within you, and it's just accessing that through breath, through meditation, through prayer, through just being and being in that emptiness almost, getting comfortable with that. I hope this was all so helpful for you, and it's allowing you to come closer to your home, to your true path. If you have any reflections or just shares from your own journey of sobriety, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear them. Give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Sucha, and I'll see you soon.